Ingrid Ferguson, who was gambling her money away in Germany on the other side of the Atlantic, was oblivious to the fact that news of her stealing her family's jewelry went viral back home. Her reputation was ruined. Once Ingrid returned to the States, the ladies in her elite circle looked at her with contempt. Moreover, the person who started all of this was Nicole, who they had kicked out of the Ferguson family. Now that Ingrid saw Nicole in this restaurant, she clenched her teeth in anger. In the past, Ingrid looked down on Nicole's unknown origins and trampled all over her. When she saw Nicole again, she went to find the restaurant manager. The manager heard the commotion and rushed over. All guests who came to this restaurant had reservations and were all influential people that they could not afford to offend. "Ms. Ferguson, I'm really sorry." Ingrid glared at Nicole and wanted to slap her a few times to relieve her anger. "She's affecting my mood for dinner. Get her out of here. We're your VIP customers." The manager turned around and was shocked to see Grant Stanton's handsome face turn glum. The lady beside Grant Stanton stood by his side with a faint smile. She looked so beautiful and regal with her long wavy hair draped at her back. She had glimmering eyes and stunning features and did not look the slightest bit affected by Ingrid Ferguson's outburst. The manager hurriedly went over and respectfully bowed to greet them. "Welcome, Mr. Stanton. Your table is ready. This way, please." Ingrid's face changed as she surveyed Grant Stanton. A trace of amazement flashed across her eyes, but when she saw that he was holding Nicole protectively, she frowned in dissatisfaction. "Hey, did you not hear me? Get them out of here." Quinn sized up Nicole with disdain and echoed on the side. "Yeah, she should take a look at herself in the mirror. How dare she come here? Nicole, do you think you can be arrogant with us after finding yourself a sugar daddy? A woman who's kicked out of the Ferguson family doesn't have the right to show up here." Grant sneered. His oppressive aura was overwhelming. "Kicked out of the Ferguson family? Your ability to twist a story is pretty impressive. When did the Fergusons become so shameless?" He was furious and wondered what kind of life Nicole had when she was staying with the Fergusons. Quinn froze. Her face turned red with anger as she looked at the manager and ordered, "What are you still doing standing here? I don't want to see them." The manager's face sank. He spoke decisively, "Mrs. Ferguson, Ms. Ferguson, Mr. Stanton is a major shareholder of our restaurant, so if you don't want to see them, you may leave." Quinn and Ingrid were stupefied, and their expressions kept changing. Nicole chuckled. Her gaze was clear and indifferent. Nicole turned to Grant. "Ignore them. It's just a meal, so there's no need for this impasse. I have something to say to the two of them, so you can go in and wait for me." Grant looked indignant, but when he thought about the fact that Nicole was a changed woman, he felt reassured that she could deal with this situation. With a slight nod, Grant turned and walked in. He was astonishingly obedient. The remaining Quinn and Ingrid were not afraid of Nicole. Ingrid sat there and snorted coldly. "At least you're still self-aware. Our family won't care who's your new sugar daddy. My brother has never once fancied you, so I can make you vanish from Atlanta in a minute." Nicole looked down and smiled. Her eyes were indifferent. "Then, what do you want? How about this? Pour me a glass of wine and apologize. I'm sure you're used to serving others like this. Didn't you do this often when you were staying with us? I'll let you off the hook this once if you serve me well." Ingrid raised her eyebrows and snorted coldly as she waited for Nicole to bow to her and admit her mistake. Nicole laughed, went up to pick up the decanter, then skillfully poured out a glass of wine and handed it over. Ingrid hooked her lips in disdain. Before her hand could touch the wineglass, she felt a chill over her head. Every drop of wine in the glass that Nicole was holding spilled on Ingrid's head. Before Ingrid had time to scream or stand up, Nicole pressed her down on the shoulders. Nicole shoved Ingrid and said close to her ear, "Ms. Ferguson, remember this. I was the one who brought up the divorce. I'm the one that doesn't want anything to do with your family. If you dare bend the truth, I'll show you which one of us will vanish from Atlanta." Nicole walked away in style. Ingrid's face was pale, and before she could react, Quinn cursed loudly on the side and told the waiter to clean up the mess. "Is this B*TCH Nicole crazy? How dare she do this to you?" Quinn spoke viciously. In the blink of an eye, Nicole had already been led by the manager to the VIP room on the other side of the restaurant. Ingrid's hair and clothes were soaked through with red wine. She looked wretched. When she returned to her senses, she was so infuriated that she wanted to go after Nicole to settle the score, but she was stopped by the waiter. "Miss, do you need a change of clothes?" The surrounding patrons stared at the miserable-looking Ingrid, who stomped her foot indignantly. "I won't let her get away with this." Grant Stanton was in a bad mood after that encounter, but Nicole was not affected in any way. She looked up at Grant and smiled. "Gee, I have a shopping date with Yvette later, do you want to join us?" The man gave her a sidelong glance and his tone was cold. "How are you still in the mood for dinner and shopping? Look at the Fergusons' attitude towards you. They're so condescending." Nicole looked down and smiled helplessly. A hint of coldness flashed across her eyes. "It doesn't matter. You don't have to take it to heart. It's over anyway. They won't mess with me anymore. Even if they do, I'm certainly no longer the pushover that will let them do as they please." After dinner, they saw Eric Ferguson's car as soon as they came out of the restaurant. Ingrid, who was sitting in the car, quickly pulled Eric out the first moment she saw Nicole. She cried and complained. "Brother, she did this. I was so humiliated just now because of this b*tch. Mom can attest to it." Nicole stood there with cold eyes and walked away holding Grant's hand, ignoring the Fergusons. Eric's face was gloomy. He did not believe that Nicole would become so mean. When he thought about Wendy's false accusation against her, he was afraid of causing another misunderstanding and waited for Nicole to come over to explain herself, but she did not even look at him and left. When they walked past by Eric, he clasped Nicole's arm and looked at her with a frigid face. "Nicole, you should give us an explanation for what happened just now." Nicole faintly raised her eyes to look at him and snorted lightly. "I did it. What's there to explain?" She then walked away like she was not at all concerned by this matter. Nicole also did not care about Eric's attitude. Eric's grip tightened, which made Nicole feel uncomfortable. She turned to look at him with her beautiful eyes that permeated a chill. "Mr. Ferguson, are you trying to settle the score for her?" "Brother, don't let her go. This b*tch dares to treat me like this, so you can't spare her so easily." Ingrid Ferguson, who had been pampered and coddled by her family since young, had never been insulted like this before, so naturally, she refused to give up. Eric's eyes darkened slightly and frowned at his sister. "What do you want then?" Ingrid hooked her lips and looked at Nicole smugly. "I'll let her go if she bows and apologizes to me." "You want me to apologize?" Nicole sneered and looked at Eric. "I guess he has the same idea." Every time Ingrid or Quinn stirred up trouble in the past, Nicole would apologize for it and would sweep the matter under the rug. But this time, Nicole did not want to condone their transgressions. "Mr. Ferguson, do you also want me to apologize? It's best to check the surveillance footage at the restaurant to figure out the cause of the matter before jumping to conclusions. Ms. Ferguson isn't some innocent little rabbit, so why the self-pity?" Nicole's words were sarcastic. She shrugged Eric's hand off of her and took Grant's arm. Grant could not bear to see this and spoke up in an icy tone. "Hasn't anyone in the Ferguson family ever taught Ms. Ferguson that it's natural for others to retaliate against bullying? Why didn't Ms. Ferguson think to apologize to Nicole when she was being rude?" Ingrid's heart trembled when Grant glared at her. She felt guilty and flustered, so she hid behind Eric, looking pitiful. "Brother, I didn't." Grant and Nicole looked at Ingrid with disdain. Eric heard this and frowned slightly. "That's because she exposed me online for stealing, Daydream, and my friends made fun of me for it. That's my family's jewelry, so how is it stealing? I only said a few words to her, but she even dared to do this to me." Ingrid sheepishly tried to defend herself. That incident made Ingrid lose her pride. Eric's face was gloomy and his gaze was inscrutable. He furrowed his brow and wanted to speak. However, Nicole laughed lightly and ignored Ingrid's rebuttal. Not retaliating when being accused was something the old Nicole would do. "Ms. Ferguson, you should learn how to respect others. Otherwise, this will surely happen again." Grant added, "The restaurant surveillance footage will always be available. Mr. Ferguson, you can view it at your convenience. Goodbye." After that, Grant led Nicole to the car and thoughtfully opened the car door for her. They then left the Fergusons dumbfounded.